What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. I have another Suqqu review for you all today. I'm going to be reviewing a couple of the products from their pre-holiday collection. I have one of the eyeshadow palettes and two of the blushes. We're going to be doing swatches, a couple of comparisons, two demos. I've got two looks for you guys today, and of course, I will let you know if I think this collection is worth picking up. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, then keep watching. And if this happens to be your first time here, then welcome. My name is Sophia, and this is my channel where we talk about all things beauty and luxury. Every single week I upload new content on all the newest luxury beauty releases. We love Suqqu, Dior, Tom Ford, Chanel, Pat McGrath. So if those are some of your favorite brands as well, then you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button to join the fam because we have so much fun over here on this channel. And you can also hit the notification bell to hear about every time I upload a new video. You all know what to do. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you like it. And as always, I will be linking everything that I mentioned in this video, including all of the comparison palettes and whatever is on my face, in the description box down below. Do know that most of my links tend to be affiliate links, so shopping through those links is a really great way to support my channel at no additional cost to you. All right, let's get into this collection by Suqqu. If you're not familiar with the brand Suqqu, it is a luxury Japanese beauty brand. They have both makeup and they also have skincare, and I would say that their brand, it's very focused on kind of enhancing your natural beauty. But something that I really like about Suqqu is that while their makeup is more on the natural side, it's never boring. I feel like they always do a really beautiful job sort of celebrating the season. I will also say right off the bat, because I get a lot of questions about this, I have a lot of subscribers that are interested in Suqqu but have never purchased from the brand before. The best place to purchase Suqqu if you live in the US is from Selfridges. That's where I purchase these products. Selfridges is a UK based department store. They usually get all of the collections first. Some of the collections end up at other UK retailers like Liberty of London and Cole Beauty. I believe right now this collection is just at Selfridges, at least at the time of me filming this video. Unfortunately, we do not have any retailers in the United States that sell Suqqu, so you do have to get it through a UK retailer, and yes, you do have to pay for shipping. So I just want to say that right off the bat, because about a third of my subscribers are in the United States, and I know that this can be a little bit tricky and confusing if you're interested in buying the products. Before we get into the products that I picked up, let me talk a little bit more about this collection. So this is the pre-holiday collection, which, believe it or not, there's even more Suqqu coming down the line. They do have a holiday collection, which I talked about in a recent video. I actually think that this pre-holiday collection, however, does have more of those like wintry holiday vibes. There's a little more sparkle, there's a little bit more shine, which you're gonna see in a second when we do the swatches and the demo. I'll kind of move over to the side here so I can insert a picture of just kind of like the promo photos for this collection. We have two eyeshadow palettes, as I mentioned. I have one of them. We also have two pure color blushes, and looking right here, we also have two sheer matte lipsticks, a nuance eyeliner in snow gray, and also two glow touch eyes, which essentially are, I think they're just kind of like liquid eyeshadow toppers in a very glittery formula. So kind of like a really good way to just top off and add a little bit more glitter to the two eyeshadow palettes that are in the collection. I didn't pick up those other items just because I felt like they weren't really needed in my collection. I picked up my three favorite pieces. So let's dive in. I'm gonna walk you guys through each piece that I picked up, do some swatches. We have some daylight applications, and then I have just a couple of comparisons for y'all because I love to do comparisons and I wanna help you guys figure out if these are products that you actually need, because Suqqu, it is a luxury brand and the prices do tend to be up there. Let's start off with the eyeshadow palettes. These are called the Suqqu Signature Color Eyes. These retail for 48 British pounds, which is about 51 USD. Let me read you a little bit from the Suqqu website, what they were inspired by for each of these palettes. It says, reminiscent of the aurora borealis dancing in the night sky, adding a dignified shimmer to the eyes. The aurora borealis changes with altitude, creating a beautiful, broad spectrum of colors mirrored by the shades in the eyeshadow palettes. I think that this is such a beautiful idea, being inspired by the aurora borealis, which are also known as the northern lights. You get all those sort of beautiful colors. So that's what the two eyeshadow palettes are inspired by. Let me show you all just the picture of the one that I didn't get. This one is called number 118 GENSOUYA. It says that this was inspired by the sparkle of the aurora borealis, emitting a variety of colors. It's got matte yellow and pearlescent pink, evocative of shimmering stars, and is designed to add a sense of dynamism to the eyes. I didn't pick this one up because I felt like it was just a little bit less unique. I will will link down below another creator that has reviewed this palette if you guys are interested in that one. But for me, I wanted to focus more so on this baby. This is number 119, Touyakou, and it says the smoky purple and deep shimmering blue create a cool and clear impression, expressing the quietly dignified beauty of the aurora borealis spreading in the stillness of midnight. So this is going to be your beautiful cool tone ice queen frozen Elsa kind of palette, and the other one is going to be more so like the warm toasty like Anna theme kind of palette. I like to say that these are inspired by Anna and Elsa, which is totally not true, but those are the vibes that these are giving me. Comment down below if you agree. Let's take a look at some daylight swatches of this palette. This palette is gloriously sparkly, specifically those two blue shades. We have one like blinding, very multi-dimensional light blue, and then we have sort of a deeper, sparkly, richer blue with a bit of a black base. Then we have a really soft lavender, and then finally, to add some depth, we have a soft charcoal shimmer. That one is definitely less glittery than the two blues. The beautiful dimension and glitter that you get, especially from the two blue colors, is so fantastic. You guys are gonna see in the demo in a second. I decided to do two different demos for this video. I figured especially for like a holiday type of collection, I wanted to do one look that was a little bit more glam and showing you how you could kind of build these colors up for something more impactful. And then I also wanna show you guys how I created this look today, which is a little bit more of like a softer, wearable type of look. So let's dive into demo number one. And I'll just say right off the bat, guys, demo number one, I filmed in kind of like the afternoon light, so you'll be able to see probably a little bit better the sparkle and shine from that type of lighting that you get from the more glittery shades. And then the second look, you're gonna see it in more of like that morning light. So hopefully that helps you kind of see what the colors look like in different types of lighting. So let's get into demo number one, which is gonna be the more glam look. The first thing that I did is I put the soft lavender in the crease. What I will say is that this shade, it is very subtle. I did have to sort of build it up quite a bit to get it to kind of show up. I think that this is a decent transition shade. I also use this shade just for blending throughout the look, kind of off camera, blending in some of the darker colors. And then in addition, I think it's also really great for the lower lash line. Then I went straight in with the darker blue. This, as I mentioned before when we looked at the swatches, it's pretty dark. It has a fairly black base with a lot of depth and a lot of pigment, and it also has that sparkle and shine. In fact, when I started doing this look, I was trying to make this one be the more wearable look of the two, but this was my first time playing around with the palette, and as soon as I went in with that darker navy, I was like, oh, that's actually pretty dark. I'm gonna make this one the glam version. So on my skin tone, whenever I go in with this darker blue and I put it all over the lid, it does just automatically kind of make it more of a smoky look, so I'll mention that. Next, this is where the magic happens. I dipped into the glorious icy blue color and I put that all over the inner half of the lid. Wow, this color is so stunning. This is the best shade in the palette. This is the stunner shade. It's gloriously sparkly. It's so icy. It's so beautiful. It really illuminates the eye, and you'll see how I use this in the next look in a little bit more of like a wearable way. But wow, like the shimmer and the sparkle that this color gives is so pretty. It instantly brightens up the entire look. I'll also mention, friends, that with the two blue shades, I do recommend just tapping off your brush as you go because you don't want to get any fallout. I really didn't have much issue with fallout when I was doing these looks, and I think it mostly is because of that technique. So I like to sort of dig in, tap off really well, and then with a denser brush or a flat brush, really kind of gently laying it on and packing it on. I don't think that they're super fussy, but I find that that is the best technique. Just keep tapping your brush and then really just kind of carefully laying down the color. Next up, I dipped into the lavender again and I put that along the lower lash line. I also took that beautiful light blue shade and I just put that in the inner corner for some sparkle. Finally, I went into the darkest shade, which is this charcoal color, and I used a very fluffy brush to add some dimension to the outer half of the lid. You could 100% really pack this on. I'm super pale, and so a lot of times if I'm doing a smokier look, I might not want like that much depth, and so I like to use a fluffy brush to do something that is still smoky, still glamorous, but also a bit natural. If you have a deeper skin tone, this is a very pigmented shade. I do think that you very much could build it up with more of a densely packed brush. Then I added some eyeliner. I actually used a Chanel eyeliner that's kind of like a graphite color. I'll link that one down below. And then I wanted even more, so then I also kind of layered on top just a little bit of black liquid liner. I put on some mascara, and this is the final look. So this is more of like the glam look, the smoky look, really trying to make use of the entire palette and having each of those shades stand out. I thought this was beautiful. I really liked it. I actually went to a bar class afterwards and I was looking at it in the mirror and the sparkle was just so pretty, and I didn't feel like it was too much. I didn't feel uncomfortable kind of going out in public to basically the gym after doing my makeup. I thought it was super beautiful. Comment down below and let me know what you think about this look. Now it's time for look number 2. This is the look that I'm wearing today, which is kind of like the softer, more wearable, more day look. A lot of you all keep telling me that you love that I try and focus on more wearable looks. I know that that's different for everybody, but I do try and show you both softer and then also more glam looks that are still going to be wearable and also easy to do. So let's dive into this look. This time I still started out with the lavender, but I put that all over the lid, just kind of quick, just kind of smacking that all over the lid. This is a quick look. It really shouldn't take you that long at all. Then I also put the lavender just kind of like along the lower lash line. And then I went in with the icy blue, because if you're using this palette, you gotta go in with the icy blue. This is like the prettiest shade. And this time I put that just in the center of the lid. So it kind of just illuminates the entire eye. You can still see the purple. I feel like in the first look, the star of the show is the 2 blue shades. In this look, you get to see more of the purple. So I put that icy blue shade just in the center. I also put it just kind of in the center of the lower lash line. And then I also put it in the inner corner once again, just to kind of brighten up the eyes a little bit. A very common tip that I hear from Suqqu employees and just folks that work at the brand is to use the darker colors as liners. So if you feel like they're just a little bit too extreme for the look that you're going for, using the darker colors as a liner is a really great way to just kind of create a softer look. So I actually went into the deeper blue with a really tiny little refer brush and I just kind of dragged that along the upper lash line and I winged it out a little bit. And then I wanted to deepen it up just a little bit, so I actually did dip into the charcoal one and just kind of put that a little bit more along like the outer half of the lid. Once again, I just wanted like a little bit more definition to the wing. Then I popped on some mascara and this is the final look. This is the softer look. I hope you guys like this. I'm really happy with the way that this came out. I like the fact that I can use this palette in multiple ways, because sometimes, you know, this kind of color story, it can be a little bit intimidating, especially since you have such sparkly colors. So comment down below, let me know about these 2 looks. Do you think that they would be easy enough for you to create? I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know which one was your fave. I will do some comparisons with the eyeshadow palette in just a bit, but first we gotta talk about the blushes. So these are the Pure Color blushes. These retail for 34 British pounds, which is about 37 USD. And on the Suqqu website, it says, mirroring the vibrancy of the polar lights, the blush palettes tint your skin naturally and enhance translucency. These 2 limited edition palettes are designed to naturally tint the skin for a healthy complexion. The design of this palette was inspired by the shape and dynamism of the aurora borealis. So once again, I think that's really beautiful. I can totally see how this is inspired by the aurora borealis with kind of like the different colors and stripes of shades. I don't know. I've never seen the Northern Lights, but I have seen photos. So I thought that that was really beautiful. So let's start off with the purple one. This is number 135, Tsukanoma. And it says in the description, a dark purple with a reddish hue as if the skin is exhilarated by the cold. Blue and purple set to bring out an innocent look. Let me show you all the daylight swatches of this blush. Now, these look very light. Very light. I was a little bit concerned when I first swatched them. You'll also notice that these are quite glittery. I noticed that in a lot of the other swatches that I saw posted on social media. What I will say is that this is a pre-holiday collection, so they are adding a little bit more glitz here. But let's dive into the demo so you guys can see if these actually look glittery on the cheeks. I paired this blush with the first look, which was once again like the more glam look. On the first cheek, what I did is I applied just the purple blush side to the apples of the cheek, and then I went in with kind of like the lighter highlighty side. So I basically broke up the palette into both blush and highlighter, separated on my cheeks as I normally would if I had 2 different products. And I'll have to say, like, I don't think it looks that glittery when it goes onto the cheeks. What you will notice is that, as the description suggests, This is very subtle. It's very subtle. These are not super pigmented blushes. These are not as pigmented as a lot of other blushes that I have from Suqqu. I think usually with Suqqu, they don't always swatch the best, or you swatch them and the colors are kind of questionable, but then they look really pretty on the cheeks. I was actually surprised. I know this sounds bad, but I was surprised that this looks so good because I was a little concerned when I saw the swatches, but I like the kind of pretty purpley flushed look that it gives the cheek. And I also think that the tones are pretty unique. I don't have anything super exact to this in my collection, which you guys will see in a sec. Then on the second cheek, I went in with my Sonia G Smooth Buffer. I swirled all the colors together and then I buffed that onto the cheek. So this gives a little bit more of a blended airbrush look. For this blush in particular, I think I prefer this version best when you swirl all of the colors together, especially because it's darker. I don't know. It just works. I was afraid that this was gonna look really weird and frosty, but I actually think that it pairs really well with the eyeshadow palette. Next, we have the more warm tone blush. This is called number 134 Kyokuya, and on the website it says a warm orange brown color that looks as if it were lit by a lantern. The yellow and beige add a diffused glow for a healthy impression. When we take a look at the daylight swatches, we will also see, as I mentioned, this is very light. It is very subtle, and because we have that yellow stripe in here, it also gives the blush a very distinct yellowy type of character. So let me show you what this looks like applied to the cheeks in our demo. Once again, on the first cheek, I went in more so with like the blush side, and then I topped off the cheekbones with the highlighter side. This actually, if you just use the brown part, it's a really nice, neutral, natural kind of blush. It is subtle, however. It is subtle. And then on the other cheek, you see the blended version. I would say between the two, like I feel differently about this one. With the purple blush, I like it blended together. With this blush, I actually like it separate. I think that when you blend all of the colors together, it has, like I said, it has kind of like a weird yellowy tone that I don't really want all over my cheeks. And so I prefer to just kind of pick and choose and add that luminosity just to the cheekbone. Let's dive into a couple of quick comparisons. If you aren't interested in comparisons, I do always include timestamps in the description of each video, so you can jump ahead to my final thoughts if you want. But I wanted to show you just a couple of quick comparisons for each of the products. Starting off with the eyeshadow palette, the first product I wanted to compare here is one of the palettes that Suqqu released earlier in the year. I think this is from their pre-spring collection, if I'm not mistaken. This is called Sumimi Duri. I picked this one because this is the one that I instantly thought of as also having kind of navy sorts of colors, but you'll see right here, these palettes are pretty different. Next up, I wanted to show you a side-by-side of this versus the Viseart Paris Etoile palette. Once again, I think that these are different enough, but if you're looking at this review and you're thinking, this palette is too much for me, it's a little bit too sparkly, I like the overall color story, but I want something just a little bit more classic, then I would definitely recommend this Viseart palette. I actually have a full review of this palette if you guys are interested. I will link it down below. Next, I'll show you a side-by-side of this Suqqu palette up against the Guerlain Mystic Peacock. These, once again, like they're different enough. I really don't have anything exactly like this palette in my collection. Both of these palettes actually have two shades that are quite similar, and that happens to be the darker blue shade and the charcoal shade. So I'll show you guys a side-by-side with the Suqqu on the top and the Guerlain on the bottom. The formula is very different. Guerlain, I would say, it's more of a baked formula. It's a little more glittery, and for that reason, I do think that you get a little bit more fallout with that formula. I also think that Mystic Peacock in general, it's a darker, deeper, more glamorous palette. I do have to be careful with those shades because they're very dark on my skin tone. This is a really good softer option if you want something that kind of has those sparkly blues and charcoal grays. When I first used this palette, specifically when I used the beautiful icy blue shade, I kept thinking to myself, what does this shade remind me of? What does this shade remind me of? And then I was looking through my collection, I was like, aha! The Viseart Violette palette. So let me show you guys a side-by-side of this. Specifically, that beautiful icy blue shade that is in the center of this palette. I would say that both of these palettes, I'll show you guys some swatches side-by-side. They're not exact like the Viseart Violette. It's very much a purple palette, whereas this one is both purples and blues. You don't get a lot of blues. You really don't get any blues in the Viseart palette. But I want to show you this because if you love purples and you really like this beautiful icy blue shade, then the Viseart palette is a very good alternative. And finally, the palette that gives me the most similar vibe, even though the color story isn't exact, is this one. This is the Tom Ford Daydream palette. I know that this palette is a little more purple, but when I was using this one from Suqqu, once again, I kept thinking like, what does this kind of remind me of? What vibe does this give me? Now, the Tom Ford Daydream palette, it's pretty difficult to get. I had to find this on eBay from some random eBay seller. I love it. It might be one of my like top 3 Tom Ford palettes, to be honest with you. And if you guys always wanted this, but maybe you just are having trouble finding it or it's a little bit too expensive for you, then I think this one from Suqqu might be a really great alternative. Let's quickly take a look at some comparisons for these blushes, starting off with the purple toned blush. I will show you all here a side by side of the Suqqu blush up against the Gucci Warm Berry blush and also the Patrick Ta Oh She's Different. These are kind of similar, but they're really not that close to the one from Suqqu. They were the ones that I instantly thought of that I wanted to show you to compare. But when you see the swatches, you will notice that the undertones are very different. Also, this one from Suqqu, just given the fact that they have these highlighter stripes built in, you overall have more to play with. It's frostier, it's more sparkly, it's not as natural, but it is unique. Finally, let's take a look at some comparisons of the nude blush. I have a couple of blushes here side by side so you can get a good overview of everything. We've got Pat McGrath Desert Orchid. We have Sumiro, which is a melting powder blush from Suqqu. We had at the bottom there, M Cosmetics Faded Clementine. Bottom middle, RMS Maiden's Blush. And then in the bottom right, we have the NARS blush in the color Tempted. I'll quickly show you some swatches of these. So the first swatch set, we've got the new Suqqu blush. Then we have Suqqu Sumiro. We have Desert Orchid, and then we have Maiden's Blush. You'll see in this lineup, the Suqqu blush is very different because you have these other 2 lighter shades. It just pulls so much more golden and yellow that it completely, it's just very different from a lot of these other nude blushes. And then just the brown part on its own as well is very subtle. Let me show you this up against the other 2 blushes. So once again, we've got the new Suqqu one. Then we have M Cosmetics Faded Clementine, which is probably the closest dupe out of all of these blushes because it's very light and glowy. And then the last swatch there is that NARS Tempted. I know I'm gonna get questions about this. This is not similar to the Gucci 05 blush in Rosy Beige or Rosy Tan, depending on what website you shopped on. It's not similar at all. That blush, much more pigmented, much darker, and has a little bit of like a mauvey undertone. All right, friends, thanks for sticking with me. I hope that all of this has been helpful to you. Now it is time for my final thoughts. Let's go through each of the products and I will let you know what I think and who I think should pick this up. Starting off with the eyeshadow palette. First off, I love the color story. I love the theme. I love the celebration of winter and the northern lights. I like the fact that we get a good range of kind of lighter, medium toned, and also darker colors in this palette. I love the glitter, the sparkle, and the shine. Like, hallelujah, we're getting something fun for holiday. I think that this collection is going to be a lot more fun than their holiday collection, which if you haven't seen it, I'll put an image right here. It's very soft and floral. So if you're looking for something more glamorous, I recommend shopping from this collection. I also think that the quality is very good. I didn't get any fallout. You would have seen from the demo that this is quite glittery, but I still feel like it's sophisticated. It is not a natural palette by any means. If you're looking for something that's not glittery, I would try and look out for that Tom Ford Daydream palette, or I would go for the Viseart Violette palette. If you like purples, if you want something softer, this is going to be glittery. It's not going to be a super duper subtle palette, but it is going to be more subtle than like a Pat McGrath palette, or it is even going to be more subtle than like one of the Guerlain quads that have recently released. Let's talk about some considerations. The 2 things that I think you need to think about are these 2 shades. Number 1, the lavender shade is very, very soft. I would say that's the only thing that I would change about this palette is I would like this shade to be a little more pigmented. You do have to build it up just a bit. I would prefer it to be more like a Viseart matte, if you guys are familiar with that formula. And then this shade right here, I wouldn't change it, but I think the consideration that you need to have is that this mid-tone shade is actually quite dark if you have a paler skin tone. Like I said, as soon as I go into that color, it's instantly kind of a darky, more smoky, more glamorous type of look. I love this shade, but it needs to be a consideration. You have to think about what kind of looks you want. So if you're on the paler side of the spectrum, I would consider this. Ask yourself if you're okay with that color being a little bit deeper, given that there's really only two like main shimmers in this palette. If you are deeper, I think you need to ask yourself if you're okay with this being a little bit softer. This is going to be more of like a blending shade for you, maybe something for the inner corner, maybe on the center of the lid, and then you layer this one on top, just like I did here. So those are the things that I think I would think about, just depending on where you fall in terms of your skin tone. But overall, I really like this palette. I'm happy that I have this in my collection. I don't regret it at all. I'm really glad that I got this because, as you guys saw from the comparisons, I really don't have anything like this in my collection. It's beautiful, and I'm excited to keep wearing this, especially as it gets like actually more into the winter and holiday time. Now we have the purple blush. I was actually surprised that this looked good. I don't think that this swatches well at all, but I was surprised that it gave a really beautiful flush. As I mentioned before, I think it pairs really well with this eyeshadow. I also was surprised that it really didn't look that glittery once I put it on the skin. I think that Suqqu blushes, they don't tend to swatch well. They look like they're gonna be a little bit crazier in the pan than they actually are on the cheeks. I definitely, for this one, prefer the blended application. I was afraid that it was gonna look a little weird and icy on my skin tone, but it really didn't. I think the thing to keep in mind for this blush is, number one, it's very, very light. I don't think this is gonna work for deeper skin tones at all. And you would think that this would be the one that would, because it looks so dark in the pan, but it's just so subtle that I honestly, especially because these are so expensive, I think that there's better blushes out there for deeper skin tones. I would check out the melting powder blushes. They have some really beautiful ones on like the deeper side of the spectrum. I just think that this is going to be too light. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that I don't think that this is natural. You know, it says in the description, this is supposed to give you that like look of, you know, exhilaration, like you were just running through the snow or like having a snowball fight. I don't think that's the case here. This is not a natural blush. This is a fun blush. It's way too purpley and fuchsia in tone and too kind of icy on this side of the spectrum to say that it is something natural. It is subtle, but it's not natural, okay? This is gonna be fun to pair with these eye looks, but this isn't going to be for people who want a super natural look. If you want that, I think that there's other better pure color blushes in the Suqqu collection that would be better for that. Finally, let's talk about the nude blush. I also don't think that this is going to be good for darker skin tones. It is just so subtle. I really would only recommend this if you're pale like me, or maybe you're kind of on like the fair to maybe the medium side of the spectrum. If you have medium skin, I'm still concerned that this just isn't going to show up. Unlike the other blush, I like to first apply this side and then apply this side, because I just think that this yellow stripe, it adds a kind of unnatural yellow undertone to the cheeks when you put it on. Honestly, guys, I think this is probably a skip altogether, because I think that there's other more beautiful, more natural blushes in the Suqqu collection, okay? I would recommend the Suqqu Melting Powder Blush in Sumiro. I will also link a couple of other options below from the Pure Color blush line that I think are better. Just more natural blushes. I think that the blushes that they launched in their summer collection are better than this. Like this, it kind of seems like they were going in a similar direction, but it just doesn't, like the execution wasn't as good as those blushes. So I would recommend that you don't pick this up, especially if you're tan to deeper complexion. If you really want something that has a little bit more sparkle that's also neutral, then I think this is good. But these blushes are pretty expensive, so I would definitely say this one is a skip. If you're choosing between them, I would definitely go for the other one, the purple one. All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed this review. Now it is your turn. Please sound off in the comments down below and let me know what you think of this collection, the looks, all of my thoughts. Do you agree? I know that quite a few of you have already picked up some items from this collection, so I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts and your experience with these products have been. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Once again, I will be linking everything that I mentioned today in the description box down below if you'd like to shop. Shopping through those links is a great way to support my channel. And if you've made it to the end of this video and you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? or hit that subscribe button to join our fam. And if you're not sure, that's okay. Head on over to my channel page to check out some of my other videos so we can get to know each other a little bit better and you can see what other kinds of brands I like to cover here on my channel. And with that, guys, I hope that you are having a fantastic day and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye.